Hello there everybody, it is me XfreezerBunny and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. So today we are building a traditional Thai house. We are visiting once again one of my favorite places in the world, which is Southeast Asia. I feel like as a Southeast Asian, our region is definitely very underrepresented, so I'm really excited to finally do another build showcasing our amazing culture. And I decided to do a Thai house because we've recently gotten the pawn tool and I feel like this house just fit in so perfectly with that new tool. This build is definitely more so a showcase of the pawn tool, but it's also going to be a showcase of Thai culture and Thai architecture as well. So yeah, I've done quite a few Asian builds on the channel. This build is definitely along the vein of my more traditional Asian houses. I've done a Japanese house, I've done a Korean house a couple of months ago, and I've also done a Filipino house a while back. I feel like they all kind of fit into that traditional kind of rustic aesthetic. A lot of people have been suggesting I do a Around the World series. I'm not sure how I feel about that because having an Around the World series kind of implies that I have like a style that I usually do on my builds, which I kind of don't. You know, I feel like if you know the channel, you know that the builds are generally sporadic in nature. Like I just do whatever style I feel like. I don't really have a fixed style. So sometimes I do more traditional cultural houses and sometimes I do more modern luxurious builds, and a lot of it is just based off of what I feel like doing at the time. I feel like these past couple of builds is definitely an example of that because last time I did a traditional underwater house, and in the next build it's probably going to be more of a luxurious house. So yeah, all I can say is that there's a lot of diversity on the channel. So yeah, I really enjoyed this build though. As you know, I have been loving the pawn tool so much, and it's also summer. So I really wanted to do more of like a summery build. So we are back in Sulani. It's been a while, but I'm really happy to be back. It's such a gorgeous world. And yeah, I'm really happy to give you a little bit of sunshine because there hasn't been a lot of good news coming out of Southeast Asia recently. In Thailand in particular, I believe they're going through some of their worst COVID crisis. So if you're from Thailand, I want you to know that, you know, my thoughts are with all of you guys over there. And also same goes for the other countries in Southeast Asia that are going through their worst COVID crisis. I think Indonesia is also going through a really bad COVID crisis right now. So yeah, I hope you're all staying safe and looking after yourself. And also don't forget your mental health, because I know it can get really overwhelming. My country right now has just gotten back into another 2-week lockdown, so that was really stressful, but you know, I'm trying to be positive and I'm trying to be productive, and hopefully this build can give you some sort of enjoyment over these really hard times. But moving on to something that's more positive, a couple of days ago I did a face reveal on Twitter. I have shown photos of myself before. I've actually posted quite a few if you've been following me throughout these years, but yeah, I did take a selfie, which is not something that I do often. But yeah, I got a haircut recently, so I was like, you know what, let me just share an updated photo of myself, because I feel like a lot of the photos that are circulating online are like years old. So I was like, let me just share, you know, some more updated photos of me. And honestly, the comments on that photo were just so nice. Thank you guys so much for boosting my ego. Of course, I have a lot of, you know, I don't know, I feel really self-conscious sometimes about myself and how the way I look, which is like normal, I guess, for people. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being so nice with your comments. I want to know if I look exactly how you imagined, because I've gotten comments from people telling me that, yeah, apparently my voice matches the face, I guess. I don't know, it is whatever, but yeah, I'm really happy that I posted that photo. It was also a really random photo as well. I literally just took a selfie and posted it on Twitter. Probably should have thought a little bit more about it because the background was literally like the worst. Like it literally was like my shelf, like, and it sucks. The background sucked. I could have done a better job at a face reveal, but it was a pretty, spur of the moment decision, but it is what it is. We are not scripted here on the channel at all. Even my commentaries actually are not scripted. I don't even have bullet points most of the time. Most of this is just off the cuff commentary, which is kind of why I'm all over the place. But I don't know. I'd like to think that some people enjoy it at least. Before I get carried away, let's actually go back to talking about the build itself. So as you can see, I am using quite a bit of the tool mod to kind of customize my own build assets. I used those wooden pieces from Cottage Living to make these like roof supports, and I also made these custom windows that have these wooden slats from Snowy Escape just to make them look more realistic to what I've seen Thai windows look like based on the reference images that I've seen so far. And yeah, also probably the most recognizable feature of Thai houses is the roof. So I really did my best to recreate the roof and how it looks. I couldn't recreate kind of like the wooden sculptures that give the roof its kind of like shape, but I think the roof turned out really, really nice considering how limited I was. I had the tool mod, but sometimes there's just no way to recreate certain build elements, which is kind of unfortunate, but I had to make do with what was available. But overall, I'm really, really happy with this build, especially with the landscaping. I feel like it's one of the best that I've done so far. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to hear your guys' feedback. I've already posted some preview images on Twitter, and so far it's been getting some really, really good feedback on there, so I'm really, really happy. I have been working on this build for 2 weeks. It was really, really tedious, especially on the editing, because I had like so many hours of footage that I had to condense into, a speed build that was less than 30 minutes, a watchable length in my opinion. One thing that I did struggle with in this build was actually just matching all of the colors. As you can see, I initially started with different wood tones. It was hard to match everything, so I ended up with this more darker wood tone. I've noticed that in a lot of Thai houses, a lot of them have more of a red color on the exterior, which would have been really interesting, but unfortunately we don't have a lot of red for the wallpaper and for the windows and doors to all match, which is really, really unfortunate. But I really like this wood tone that I ended up going with because it feels really rustic, and I don't know, there's just something about this that feels like it's been around for forever, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm just happy that everything matches. For the house itself, I definitely imagine it to be, a single sim home. Or you can also make this into a family home, because this ended up having 2 bedrooms that can fit 3 sims. So yeah, you can have like a mom and dad and like a kid or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, for this build in particular, I just thought of a single sim who probably has a house in Bangkok, but they also have like a country house, which was probably like their old family home, and they kind of just live here during the weekends. Speaking of old family home, this house does have a mix of modern and vintage furnishings, so you will see that once we get into the furniture itself. But yeah, I did do my research on traditional Thai houses. I believe these are called Rung-Thai. I tried my best to say that. I just literally used Google Translate to tell me what that means. But yeah, it's a traditional Thai house. There's many different kinds actually, depending on which region of Thailand you're in. I believe there's also like a northern Thai house as well, which looks really different. The northern Thai one looks really similar to some of the houses that we have here in the Philippines. But I gotta say, Thai houses are really unique because they're actually built on platforms, because Thailand has a lot of floods, and they're also composed of many different smaller houses. So apparently when people first start off with their first house, they would have just one little house. But as they have more family members or as they get richer, they would add on more structures onto their little platform, which is really interesting. I think it's really unique because in my country, the idea of what a house is, it's like one singular structure. So it's really interesting to see this Thai tradition. And also a lot of activity is centered on the balcony or the terrace, I guess. So I put like a little dining area, I'm using air quotes here, dining area on the terrace. You can actually sit on one of those little chairs and eat like from one of the hot pots. Unfortunately, we just don't have some proper gameplay features that allow Sims to sit on the floor, which is kind of a missed opportunity in my opinion for Snow Escape. That would have been a perfect feature for that pack. Or even just like a kotatsu without a blanket would have been so perfect. That would have made it so much more versatile, but we don't have it. I could have used some CC. I believe Illogical Sims has a CC that has a kotatsu that doesn't have a blanket, but I just didn't want to use any CC for this build because, yeah, whenever I use CC in a build, nobody downloads it. Like literally, usually a build that I do on the channel gets like thousands of downloads if I use CC, and if the gallery flags it as having CC, it would get like 100 views or like 100 downloads, which is kind of a waste. I feel like there's that aspect of not really being inclusive towards having CC on the gallery, but you know, it is what it is. I get how they have it in The Sims because, you know, CC is risky to have. You know, it does have the potential to, you know, ruin your game or like harm your saves and stuff like that. So I guess it is what it is, but I feel like, you know, just CC builds deserve more recognition in my opinion. But personally, I really enjoy the challenge of doing no CC builds. It drives me crazy, don't get me wrong. It's like a puzzle that needs to be solved, but it feels really satisfying if you achieve what you set out to do, especially if we have the tool mod. Thankfully, using the tool mod doesn't flag the builds as containing CC, and you also don't need to have the tool mod to download builds that use it for placing items and stuff. You don't need it in your game, so it's a pretty foolproof way to get certain things to look the way you want them to without having to use CC. So that's that. That's basically my long-winded way of explaining that. But yeah, a while back we just furnished the bedrooms. Pretty straightforward. I put a canopy bed. We extended a little bit of the master bedroom because I wanted to make more room for it. And we also have this kind of guest bedroom, which is also more of like an art room. I have an easel in here and also some stacks of artwork. But notice that I am using quite a few jewel tones in the color scheme for this build. I just really like how it all ties in together because the house itself is already really dark, and whenever I think of Thailand, I think of their really rich, colorful cultures, so I feel like jewel tones for the color scheme really match really well with that aesthetic. Also over here I have made kind of like my own quote-unquote Buddhist altar. I'm not sure actually if I did it correctly. I did have some trouble finding some proper references in English because I did see some reference images, but couldn't really find a lot of, you know, specific, you know, like academic references that are available in English, because a lot of them are locked in, you know, websites that require you to pay for them for the research, which I still don't get. And a lot of them are also in Thai, which I could have translated them, but I don't trust the translations, honestly. Like sometimes when you translate things, they just don't come across as accurate as I would like them to be, so I'm not sure, but I did try my best to do the research, and a lot of the English references that I've seen seem to be legit, so I tried my best to make this as, you know, realistic and culturally accurate. But yeah, back to the whole Buddhist altar thing. I'm not sure if having a pig statue is a good, you know, thing to have, I guess. So I will change it because I did try to research what the pig meant in Thai culture. Couldn't find any explanation on like what it meant, if it was viewed as a good animal or like a bad animal. You guys get what I mean. So just to play it safe, I changed it into a lion sculpture instead. There's one that came with city living, I believe, and that's the one I went with. I would have liked to put an elephant actually, because you know the elephant is kind of like the iconic Thai animal, but yeah, we don't have any elephant sculptures that fit for that altar place. But yeah, moving on to the main living area, and I did also quite struggle with this because we just really lacked the furniture, because traditionally Thai people would just be on the floor. They would do a lot of activities on the floor, like sit on the floor, eat on the floor, eat not on the floor, but eat on like trays or like low-lying furniture. And we didn't really have a lot of that, unfortunately, but we do have these lounges. I guess these are ones that came with Dream Home Decorator, and these were the closest ones I could find to looking like some actual Thai furniture, because I've seen like in Thai interiors they have these like cushion tables or like daybed looking table things, ottomans, and yeah, those were the closest things I could find. But I think it works. I feel like you kind of get the gist of what I was trying to go for. And once again, I did some, jewel tone color schemes for this place because I just really liked how it contrasts with the dark wood that we already have in the house. I also noticed that in some Thai interiors, they would have these like little cushions that people would sit on. And I put kind of like a recreation of that in one of the coffee tables that I have in the corner of this main living room area. But definitely the prominent feature of this living room would be the elephant painting, which is really, really beautiful. I believe it came with city living, and yeah, I'm really, really happy that I got to incorporate that, because like I said, the elephant is kind of like the iconic Thai animal. It has a lot of meaning in their culture, and it also has a lot of media attention as well, especially when it comes to how we treat elephants. So yeah, I would definitely love to visit Thailand one day. It's definitely on the bucket list, and maybe get the, experience of being with elephants, not to ride them, but the correct experience of being with them in their natural like habitat. Basically the whole authentic animal friendly experience is what I'm trying to say. Moving on to the kitchen. Now, traditional Thai kitchens would usually be indoors in a highly ventilated room. I did try to do an indoor kitchen, but I just couldn't make it work. I didn't like how dark it was and how cramped it was. And I figured that since Thailand was a tropical country anyway, I feel like an outdoor kitchen wouldn't be so bad. So I just went and did this kitchen outside. I hope it is okay. Please let me know if you'd rather see like an indoor kitchen. Yeah, I definitely think of doing that in like another Thai house build, because I feel like I'd like to do another one at some point in the future. Maybe like a mansion, actually, like a really stylish one. There's quite a few like museums in Thailand that are owned by foreigners, actually. Traditional houses that were owned by foreigners that have been converted into museums, and I kind of want to recreate one of them in the future, so we'll see. But I really like how this kitchen turned out. It reminds me so much of traditional kitchens in the Philippines as well, because of course, Southeast Asian cuisine has really, really strong odors. So it makes sense to have like an outdoor kitchen or like a highly ventilated kitchen, actually. And of course, there's also another typical feature in Asian houses. But yeah, we have the separate toilet, which is also found in a lot of traditional Filipino houses as well. So I just tried to, put one over here. There's also a shower in there and a bucket as well outside. Oh, I forgot to mention, in this build, we will also be featuring a lot of the skills that came with Spa Day, specifically the yoga and meditation skills. So I put some items over there. I put the meditation stool in front of the altar. Hopefully that's okay. Yeah, maybe you can move it if you download this house, but yeah. overall, really happy with how the interior came together. It has also been play tested, so you can rest assured that it is fully functional. So yeah, and I am just moving on to some of the landscaping over here. Pretty straightforward stuff, but I just included as much footage of the landscaping as I can so you can see what I did here. But yeah, I want to know, have you seen some Thai dramas recently? I did have a phase where I watched a lot of Thai dramas and movies, but this was like 10 years ago. Haven't really seen a lot of recent ones. The first Thai movie I've seen, and this is still one of my favorites, Love of Siam, is iconic for me. Definitely was my awakening towards, the whole LGBT movie, coming of age movies as well. That was like such a good movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I think that show still holds up really well, and I kind of want to rewatch it because it's been like 10 years since I first watched it. Because of that, I haven't really seen a lot of recent Thai shows. I know that there has been an explosion of boys love dramas that are coming from Thailand. Haven't really seen any of the recent ones. The last Thai drama that I actually watched was the Thai adaptation of Princess Hours, which is a Korean show that is really popular in Southeast Asia. And yeah, there was a Thai adaptation that came out like 3-4 years ago, and that was the last one that I watched. So really loved that though. It ended up being aired in the Philippines, but I watched it before it aired here. But yeah, here we're working on some of the landscaping aspects, and I forgot to mention, we are putting a spirit house in one corner of the garden, which is another typical feature of traditional Thai houses. There is a little house where people would give offerings to, I'm assuming, spirits, maybe ancestral spirits. So I wanted to also incorporate that cultural aspect as well. But yeah, for the landscaping, I'm doing my usual overgrown naturalistic landscaping, which is my favorite type of landscaping, I have to say. And because I use a lot of the pond tool in this build, I got to, do a more swampy kind of, like tropical landscaping, which I really love. A lot of these are from Island Living, and I think it all came together really nicely. A lot of tropical plants. I will also be incorporating a lot of the new effects as well. Like, we have some fish, ducks, and there's also going to be a crocodile as well, which we're going to be placing later on. And of course, because this is in Thailand, I had to put some lanterns. So a lot of the trees that I used actually have some lanterns on them. They look really beautiful at night. I believe the trees that came with lanterns are from Movie Hangout. I might be wrong. I get confused with all of the stuff packs because we just have way too many. But yeah, I think they're from Movie Hangout. And yeah, I'm also putting this little boat over here because it just reminds me so much of those like floating markets in Thailand. So beautiful. I would love to visit them one day. Like, if you have any suggestions on where to go when I visit Thailand, because I'm definitely going to visit once this whole pandemic is over, I would definitely love to visit. But yeah, I'm putting in some of these floating lanterns. These are so beautiful. They came with City Living, I believe, and they just really bring everything together and make everything look really beautiful and zen. That's the word I was trying to look for. It makes everything look zen. And finally, we are incorporating some of these decorative effects. The alligator will pop in and out every couple of hours, I notice. And you can barely see the fish because of how murky the water is, but I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I also put those firefly effects over here as well near the spirit house just to make everything look a little bit more mystical. But having said that, I think that's actually going to be it for this build. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching. You all have an awesome day. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.